Great. Welcome to Digital Asset News. My name is Rob, and today, as the thumbnail and title suggests, we got a lot of things to go over. So let's not beat around the bush and just get into it. What we're going to talk about is we're going to quickly go over the market, how it's actually rebounding a little bit. Then we're going to talk about Voyager, what led to this Chapter 11 bankruptcy and the warnings that were all around us. Then we're going to take a look at the actual announcement itself. We're going to take a look at the documentation of the Chapter 11 that was actually filed today and take a look at what the document actually says. Then we're going to get into Voyager Trust, as far as FDIC insurance, and go from there. So before we get into it, let's just quickly take a look at the market itself. And today's, for the market, it's pretty good. We're up a little bit. So we're up 3.3%, almost around 950 billion for the market cap. Bitcoin's up, Ethereum's up, Tether USD are down, which means people aren't selling off and putting into stables. Binance Coin, everything's up, except wow, 11% for Avalanche. Good for you, Avalanche holders. 4%, 2%, 6% for Chain, 4.5 for Chain, 9% for the Sandbox. Fascinating. So that's the market, but that's not what everybody's here for. What we're here for is this Voyager Chapter 11 and exactly what's going on. So we're going to take a look at what led up to this bankruptcy. And it comes down to, we all know about Three Arrows Capital. Well, first, everything happened with Luna. And then Three Arrows Capital has got tentacles into everything. And the people that loaned to that black vortex that just swallowed up all different assets and, of course, is now in bankruptcy. And they're going through the whole process in the BVI, British Virgin Islands. And when these things were going along, of course, we took a look at Celsius. And on June 12th, actually June 9th, 10th, and 11th, I was at Consensus in Austin. And it was an odd thing because I was sitting there talking to a bunch of people, a bunch of heavyweights in the industry, and they're like, we saw it coming from all over the place. And Celsius was going to go down, or they're going to go down because of this Three Arrows Capital. And I'm like, when I get back, I probably should do a video on that. Did it on June 12th. Within 9 hours after I did it, around 11 o'clock, Celsius shuts off the withdrawals. And then, of course, moving forward, we saw nice posts like this, which were from Steve Ehrlich, the CEO of Voyager. And he states, Voyager Digital CEO says customer assets are safe and amid crypto collapse. And it goes into this long history of exactly what it was. This was on June 14th. So we're like, okay. And then, of course, we heard about the loan from Alameda Research for, everything kind of just added up to around $350 million worth of loans, which kind of covered everything that happened with 3AC. However, this was on June 14th, and as things went along, some things became apparent and came out. And during this time, this is when I got concerned. And on this channel, I have talked about Voyager a lot. If there is any platform I've talked about, probably Voyager, quite a bit. So it pained me to get the information that came to my attention, especially with the collateral issue. And we took a look at that. This was on June 22nd. I could have ignored it and looked the other way and go, that'll be okay. Good team, the things I talk about, things that are going on, but it didn't add up. Things didn't add up. And of course, we put the rules down. We talk about those rules, things that come forth. But we talked about this in this video on June 22nd, 4 minutes or so. Take a listen. Voyager came out on June 14th, and because of its situation, says, we manage risk and prioritize the security of customer funds first and foremost. We keep things simple, no DeFi lending activities. Let me say that again, no DeFi lending activities, which is what it looks like Celsius has been doing or had done, which led to a little ruination. No algorithmic stablecoin staking, which again, Luna, Terra, Celsius. No derivative assets, and certainly no staked ETH. Our straightforward, low-risk approach to asset management is the result of our decades of experience leading companies through market cycles. We have the experience to back our decisions and weather any bear market. And here's the thing. In a lot of ways, they're right. As far as risk management, they are very good. They do take a look at some of the most trusted individuals in the space, and they make those loans out to them only. There's no DeFi thing. Unfortunately, here's the problem. They had a big loan out to Three Arrows Capital. And I think this has been going around, but there's some nuances to this that I think are kind of important, especially when we talk about collateral. 5 billion crypto assets collateral payable 2020. So this is still what concerns me. And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe that's not right. Maybe I'm just not looking at it correctly because it's just a snippet of someplace else. So there was a press release. This is from the same place, PR Newswire. And if we come down here, it's the same thing. This is directly from Voyager. And USD in thousands, crypto assets held respectively. So this is in March 2022, and as compared to June 30th, crypto assets loaned and collateral. So that's what I see. So let me know what you think about that in the comments section, and we'll go from there. That's pretty good. I took a quick look at the comments. It's pretty funny. And then there is one more thing I like to say. You see these rules underneath me? I just put these rules out 2 days ago. The rules. And I said I wouldn't remove them because I think they should stay forever. Because these should be some of the rules that I think that I will adhere to. You don't have to adhere to them because this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But for me, the rules are this. I always think to myself, anything that I invest into, it's already gone. Meaning, in my head, I have to just think to myself, well, whatever I invest into, I'll probably lose it. And I can only invest more than I can afford to lose. So if I'm okay with putting 20 bucks into Bitcoin and going, well, this isn't going to crush me, I'm okay. But if I look at my bank account and put my entire life savings into Dogecoin or even Bitcoin, then maybe that's not the best place for me. The next one is everything's a scam. Treat everything like a scam until proven otherwise, and you'll be a lot happier person. I can guarantee that. And the next one is 0% on exchanges. And I don't know what's going on. I said the same thing with Celsius. It seemed like a little bit off. So on last Sunday, I said, not this Sunday, but Sunday before last, on the 12th, I said, you should, if you don't feel comfortable and is the yield really worth it, then take it all out. And the same thing here. Now, I will still use Voyager because I still have to buy crypto when I dollar cost average and when I want to sell, but I don't have to keep it there if I don't want to. And there's some cryptos that you can't take off of Voyager and other exchanges. So for that, you have to decide, is it worth it to buy this crypto and leave it there or not? Maybe I want to put it into a ledger. Maybe I don't even want to put it in my MetaMask. It's up to you. I can't tell you what to do unless you're dead. So these are just the things that have kept me a little bit safe. The next one is no leverage. It's just a recipe for disaster. And the last one is take profits. Stop being so greedy. Trust me, I get into that pit myself. So that takes care of that section. I know what you think, and I will let you decide. So that was on June 22nd. Celsius video was on June 12th, and then here we are today. I will tell you one thing, and I talked about this after Celsius collapsed and is going through their restructuring process. Where I messed up was I listened to people too much. And when people said, Rob, shut up, because they'll get it, they'll understand. People will get it in their heads. And they'll see it from Celsius and they'll take everything out. So stop telling us these stupid rules. I messed up because I should have been telling everybody my rules constantly, like every video. And I will not be making that mistake again. So if you're sick of hearing those rules and you don't want to hear them anymore, that's fine. I'll see you later. But from now on out, it's just like marketing. Everybody has to hear these things 3, 5, 10, 20 times before they get it through their head about the things to do. You'd think that we would do these things, but it doesn't happen as naturally as that. So I'll rectify that right now. Anyhow, so moving forward, Voyager, here's the announcement itself. So this is from Steve Ehrlich, and he says, hey, this was just this morning. Today we began a voluntary financial restructuring process to protect assets in the platform, maximize value for all stakeholders, especially customers, meaning you, and emerge as a stronger company. And if we take a look at the thread, there's a couple of gems in here and some platitudes. We strongly believe in the future of the industry, but the prolonged volatility in the crypto markets and default of 3 hours capital requires to take this action. Well-established legal process whereby companies reorganize their financial obligations to emerge as strong organizations provides an efficient and equitable mechanism to maximize recovery. Our goal is to come out a stronger organization. We'll see. We'll take a look at the document. As part of this process, the proposed plan of reorganization will resume account access and return value to customers. That's not happening anytime soon. I'm pretty sure about that one. Under this plan, which is subject to change given ongoing discussions of the parties, and there's 60 parties they're discussing, and requires court approval. Customers with crypto in their accounts will receive, in exchange, a combination of the crypto in their accounts, 1, proceeds from the Three Arrows Capital Recovery, 2, common shares in the newly reorganized company, 3, and Voyager tokens or VGX. Some of you do not want that, I can tell you right now. But I can tell you if they do go through this, that'll be a big sell-off. We're actively pursuing all available remedies for recovery from 3AC, including, of course, through them from their the BVI in New York, where Three Arrows Capital have incorporated and put in their bankruptcy paperwork. It's important to note that as part of this announcement, we are confirming that customers with USD deposits in their accounts will receive access to those funds after a reconciliation and fraud prevention process is completed with Metropolitan Commercial Bank. I need to say that again. It's important to note that as part of this announcement, we are confirming that customers with USD deposits in their account will receive access to those funds after reconciliation and fraud prevention process with Metro Commercial Bank. And we're going to get into that at the very last part from friend of the show, Paul Barone, as he talks about FDIC insurance. So, for additional information about the Chapter 11 process, blah, blah, blah. Not important. Okay, so that's the first part. And it gives me, we'll talk all about it. But this is from Simon Dixon as he talks about the restructuring process with Celsius Network. And he even said, look, if Celsius Network moves to Chapter 11, we have a top-tier team to support depositors first. We have strategy, we have the ears of the board, and we will have the ears of Chapter 11 as we prepare. In that case, blah, blah, blah. So Simon's also going to be doing a Twitter Spaces to talk about all this, so you can follow him at Simon Dixon Twit. You can find Simon's information in every description of my video at the very last part. There's like 8 people that I listen to almost every day, and Simon's one of those guys. So this is great, and this is nice, but we need to break it down. We need to talk about what is a Chapter 11 as opposed to Chapter 7. How well have these companies done getting out of Chapter 11, and the companies that have come out of Chapter 11, what kind of companies are those as far as hard assets as opposed to financial industries? And then we'll take a look at the actual document so you can make some more informed decisions. So first off, this is from Investopedia, and it talks about, and I want you'll probably be able to figure this out pretty quick, what the difference is between all these companies. These are the ones that have actually gone through Chapter 11 and have come out successfully. Apple. This is a 97. Microsoft came in and gave them $150 million, which is kind of crazy because they're a $1 trillion company now. And the reason that some people speculate that Microsoft only did this because it was worried that regulators would regard it as a monopoly without the competition from Apple in the marketplace. So pretty good point there. Remember, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates hated each other. At first they were friends, then they hated each other. And then towards the end of Steve Jobs' life, they became good friends again. And they were attached to the hip. Next one was General Motors. And of course, they came out of it with the help of the government. Ally Financial, same thing. Chrysler, Marvel Entertainment, Six Flags, Texaco, and Sbarro. So what's different between all these companies? Well, they all had hard assets, most of them. Apple did, GM did, Chrysler did, Marvel does, Six Flags, Texaco, and Sbarro has pizza, I guess. So the difference was that Ally Financial was a financial company. And that is a big difference as far as hard assets. However, I will say this. The reason why they were bailed out was because they were part of the U.S. Treasury Department's bailout when they bailed out GM, because Ally Financial is the auto financing arm of General Motors. So that sucks, right? You're like, well, that's bad. What about financial companies? Well, that's a great question. Here's a couple of examples. And I pulled these examples. We're going to go over this from the actual Chapter 11 documentation. And these people, the Moelis and company that are helping with this Chapter 11 restructuring, also were a part of the restructuring of these financial organizations to get out of Chapter 11. So this one's AMBAC. This is April 29, 2013. AMBAC's principal operating subsidiary, AMBAC Assurance Corp., is a guarantee of public finance and structured finance obligations. One thing to note about this is that they came under bankruptcy or Chapter 11 on November 8, 2010, and it took them 3 years to get out. Well, 2.5. Somewhere around there. So that's not great. However, look at this one. Walter Investment emerged from Chapter 11, changed its name to Ditech Holding Company or Ditech Financial. This was listed on February 9, 2018. And again, this company, which is now called Ditech Holding, was also a part of the restructuring plan from Moelis & Company. And they had a financial restructuring plan which eliminated $800 million in debt and emerged from Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Back in December, Walter announced that it planned to file for Chapter 11 as part of a pre-packaged restructuring plan to cut its debt by $800 million. Going forward, the company will continue to serve customers through its subsidiaries, Ditech Financial, again, $800 million financial company. So that's where we have to kind of say, well, there weren't a ton of hard assets. Financial companies can actually make it. Does this mean that this is the norm and everybody comes out of Chapter 11? Absolutely not. And that's what we'll get into with this. First of all, what's Chapter 11? And what's the difference between Chapter 11 and Chapter 7? Well, filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection simply means that a company is on the verge of bankruptcy, but believes that it can once again become successful if it's given an opportunity to reorganize its assets, debts, and business affairs, which sounds a lot like what Voyager needs to do, especially with all those loans, or not all those loans, but the max amount of loans for Three Arrows Capital, which kind of screwed up everything, let's be honest. And what's the difference between that and Chapter 7? Well, Chapter 7 means you're going to cease company operations and leads the total liquidation of assets to creditors. So not there, like we think we can still do it, Chapter 11. So while Chapter 11 can spare a company from declaring total bankruptcy, the company's bondholders and shareholders are usually in for a rough ride. That's me and you. When a company files for Chapter 11 protection, its shares value typically drops significantly as investors sell their positions. Well, that's just for the stock option. The assets, the digital assets, is the big question. And that is the big thing. After Chapter 11 filing, once Chapter 11 bankruptcy is filed, the federal court appoints one or more committees that are tasked with representing and working with creditors and shareholders of the corp to develop a fair reorganization. Sometimes after reorganization, a company will issue new stocks that is considered different from the pre-reorganization stock. If this occurs, investors will need to know whether the company has given its shareholders the opportunity to exchange the old stock for the new stock, because the old one is considered useless. So that's the whole thing of what he talked about here, where he talks about, hey, we're going to give you some type of share into the company. Again, I don't think that's what people really want. They just want all the crypto. Again, assets. So here's another thing. There's some misconceptions. Because when I see bankruptcy, I'm like, oof, this isn't good. However, we try to get the most information we possibly can. Here's some five misconceptions. First of all, bankruptcy doesn't mean going out of business. While Chapter 7 business banking, which we talked about, liquidation, Chapter 11 allows a business to restructure its debts and remain in operation. The question for me is, when do they turn on those withdrawals? When do they actually start the trades again? Businesses going through Chapter 11 often downsize as part of the process, but the objective is reorganization, not liquidation. And I will say this, remember when Hertz went through Chapter 11 bankruptcy? Yeah, neither do I, but they did. And during that whole time for bankruptcy, people were renting cars, using those cars and going over there. Again, hard assets, a little bit different. Some companies don't survive the Chapter 11 process, obviously. And then we talked about the ones that actually make it. Stores remain operational. We'll see. Chapter 11 requires a one-size-fits-all approach. Companies can seek Chapter 11 protection to halt litigation and collection efforts, negotiate with its creditors, and propose and confirm a plan of reorganization. Many companies that enter Chapter 11 have no intention of reorganizing as a going concern. The primary purpose of many cases is to quickly conduct a sale in which a buyer acquires the debtor's assets. This is why when we take a look at this right now, you're going to see that they wanted people to come in and buy these assets and keep things going. Chapter 11 is a long drawn-out process. Well, we just saw that with Walter Investment, it took 3 months. That's not too bad. However, Chapter 11 cases can wrap up in as little as 24 hours. In 2019, SunGard Availability Services emerged from bankruptcy a mere 19 hours after its case was filed. Does that mean that's going to happen here? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you've got a big swath of time frame. Less than 24 hours, 3 months, 3 years, 11 years. A lightning fast bankruptcy is known as a prepackaged case, or prepack, and involves negotiation with creditors and voting on a Chapter 11 plan before the bankruptcy case has even been filed. And then here's another one. A bankrupt company has plenty of money because it doesn't have to pay its creditors. That's a misconception. Most Chapter 11 debtors enter bankruptcy with millions of dollars in pre-petition debts. Debts that accrued before they filing by withdrawing payments to lenders, landlords, and the creditors, which is what they did to us. Most debtors cannot rely on cash flow alone to get through Chapter 11. Obviously, they're going to need outside people to come in and say, hey, would you like to buy these things? Can we partner up? Go from there. We'll talk about the 60 companies. Even if a company is aggressively cutting operational costs during the process, in almost all cases of any size, debtors must seek debtor in possession financing to help them get to the other side. That's paramount. Customers and vendors will flee, and this is what I was talking about as far as hurts. So that's that part. Now let's talk about, so we know what Chapter 11 is. We know what Chapter 7 is. We know it doesn't mean ceasing of operation. We know that it's not the best place to be. And we know that sometimes people can come out, even financial companies, but it's more likely with hard assets. Now let's take a look at the actual documentation, which comes from the filing from New York. This is what we know. Let me blow this up so you can see a little bit better. This was filed on July 6th and Chapter 11. Who did this? Jared Dermott is a managing director and head of the financial institutions group at Moelis and Company LLC. Who the heck are they? These guys. Moelis and Company is a global independent investing bank. We talked about this before. There's some guy. They're global, and they've got 3.5 trillion of transactions with deal size ranging from 100 million to 160 billion. So they're no slouches. They've been in the game. Again, we got this information from were the part of their restructuring processes. Also, they were part of Orchard Brands, which was 420 million of debt, just another type of company. But to get back to it, here's what this says. And this is from Jared again. I submit this declaration of the debtor's pre-petition efforts to effectuate an out-of-court transaction as an alternative to filing voluntary petitions for relief. Okay, halfway through. I've been involved in many notable Chapter 11 cases and restructuring assignments, including as lead investment banker in adjacent industries, Chapter 11 reorganization. And then this is where they talked about, where we just talked about all the different ones that they were a part of. There's way more in here. I have linked this in the description, so you can read the whole thing if you want to. These are all the different organizations that they have gone over in the 10 plus years, because some of them go back to 2013, 2010 actually. And then this stuff I even didn't highlight. So 18 billion for Self-Tax Corporation, 13.5 billion of financial guarantees policies to Assured Corporation, so on and so forth. That's not important. I mean, it's important to see that they actually have a tremendous amount of experience. This is the interesting part. Moelis was engaged by the debtors in June 2022 to advise the debtors, which is Voyager, as to strategic alternatives in light of the debtors' effort to navigate the recent challenges impacting the crypto industry. Again, June 2022. Beginning on or about June 20th, 2022, Moelis initiated a dual-track marketing campaign to solicit interest in two general deal structures. One, or A, a sale of the debtor's entire business to either a financial sponsor or a strategic company in the crypto industry. Think Sam Bankman-Fried or FTX or Alameda Research. B, a capital raise whereby a third party, individually or as part of a consortium, would provide a capital infusion into the debtor's business enterprise financing. This caused in part by the decline of 3ACs and Tier 11. We know that. Moelis reached out to 60 potential financial and strategic partners across the globe. Again, how could they do that? Well, it's probably because, they've done this many times and they've got partners all over the place, and that's what they did. By July 5th, 2 days ago, over 20 of the potential counterparties had entered into a confidential agreement with the debtors, non-disclosure agreement, NDA. Parties who executed a confidential agreement received a copy of the debtor's investor presentation, access to a virtual data room, business operation, finance, tax information, and corporate documents. So they could just take a look at the books and go, do we want to invest in this? While the debtor's marketing efforts yielded one proposal out of those 20 for an out-of-court financing, the conditions precedent to the proposal and the pro forma capital structure contemplated thereunder were not achievable. So they said, look, time frame isn't going to happen. We've got some concerns, especially with the state of the crypto market. Can't do it. And no other potential counterparty was willing to participate in an out-of-court transaction on the timeline required. Out-of-court transaction. As they go through, maybe an in-court transaction. Maybe something else will happen down the line, but not now. Potential counterparties expressed concerns regarding current uncertainty in the crypto market, right? The aforementioned marketing process produces multiple preliminary proposals from parties willing to participate. However, as of the date thereof, all the offers said no, because we need more time to fully develop and structure and must be evaluated for attractiveness against a potential standalone restructuring, which is why I kind of like what Simon Dixon is doing over here with Celsius. Maybe potentially they come over here and say, we can do the same thing. But again, be a long shot. As the crypto market continued to deteriorate, the debtors made the decision to place the platform on maintenance mode on July 1st by prohibiting customer withdrawals and essentially taking their services offline, which is why on June 22nd, we did the video telling people to take it off. July 1st, they shut down transactions. In light of the foregoing, the debtors determined that filing for Chapter 11 would maximize their chances of effectuating a transaction to help stabilize the debtor's business and preserve the value of the debtor's enterprise in the best interest, as well as the debtor's creditors, customers, employees, and other parties in interest, because they can't leak out anything and people can't use anything to take the money off, which is a bummer for us, but it keeps things somewhat solvent. Moelis and the debtors will continue to work with the potential counterparties, and we may engage in the future to advance potential transaction structures that may be more beneficial to the debtors and their key stakeholders than any standalone restructuring. Whether these Chapter 11 cases ultimately conclude with a transaction or a standalone restructuring, the debtors and Moelis will continue their marketing process and achieving the highest value for the debtors and all stakeholders available under the circumstances. So what does this all mean for everybody? Well, if you look at what's going on and see exactly what Steve had talked about, and he talks about, hey, we would like to actually give out, where does it say here? Yeah. This part here. It would be nice if this came to fruition. During the reorganization, we'll maintain operations. We intend to certain customer programs without disruption. Trading deposit withdrawals and loyalty rewards and Voyager program remain temporarily suspended. I do not see them opening things up. I don't see them doing this. This Chapter 11 is there to protect the company. And I think what's going to happen until they get a concrete offer with someone who can come in and say, yes, we would like to buy this, or we would like to purchase these distressed assets, and yes, we'd like to go through the courts to do this thing. This could be quite a long process. This doesn't mean this could take 11 years or like Mt. Gox 8 years. Potentially, it could. However, could it take 3 months like Ditech Holding Company Corporation? Sure, anything's possible. But I will tell you that the chances of all these things just falling in place during this bear market are not too fantastic. What could happen in a year or two from now? It's anybody's guess. But I can just tell you that there is one more thing I'd like to bring up. So we know about Chapter 11. We know about Chapter 7. We know about the different companies that potentially that did come out of Chapter 11. But again, not every one of these companies come out. A vast majority do fail. And that is truth. So the one thing that does concern me, I mean, everything concerns me these days, was this video that was put out by Paul Barone Network. And trust is a commodity you just can't buy. You just can't buy that. It's either there or it's gone. And what he says here, and one of the reasons is because Metropolitan Commercial Bank put out a statement about what's going on. So I want you to listen to this, and then I'm going to take the Q&A. Again, just show up. This is 1 minute and 31 seconds. Let me share my tab so you can hear it. Tab. Here we go. So take a listen to what was said here. This gives me an incredible amount of apprehension and distrust. Here we go.
A lot of this is really now boiling down to the fact that Voyager does not have FDIC insurance that is pass-through insurance, meaning your dollars are deposited within Voyager. They then deposit it in a bank account, think of it that way, at Metropolitan Bank, and then you get that insurance as a pass-through to your deposit account over on Voyager. That is not the case on Voyager at all. In fact, over the weekend, Metropolitan Bank issued this statement right here, which is FDIC coverage available to Voyager customers. Voyager customer funds held by Metropolitan Commercial are insured by the FDIC up to the maximum amount of coverage per depositor under federal law. The standard FDIC insurance coverage is $250K for a depositor. The FDIC insurance coverage is available only to protect against the failure of Metropolitan Commercial Bank. FDIC insurance does not protect against the failure of Voyager, any act or omission of Voyager and or its employees, meaning what if they did something wrong, or in the loss in the value of cryptocurrency or other assets. Now we're talking about US dollars here, but basically what they've said, and I think they headed this off at the pass, of simply saying, if you're a Voyager customer and you had US dollars in there, we are not securing that as federal deposit insurance, and hence you are at risk as much as anyone else. So that is a big...
And Paul said it right. That is a big, big issue. And I will end up like with this. From what you just heard, and that was a statement from Metropolitan Commercial Bank. That is the bank that holds all cash from Voyager. To my knowledge, seems like no one tells me the full story anymore. This is directly from Steve Ehrlich. It's important to note that as part of the announcement, we are confirming that customers with USD deposits in their account will receive access to those funds after a reconciliation and fraud prevention process is completed with Metro Commercial Bank. Look, I'm not here to place blame on anybody. I'm not here to say this and this. I'm just here to give you both sides of the same story and talk about my shortcomings of the rules. And the rules, again, below me, are never going to change. And this is for me. You can do whatever you want. I'm not your dad. This is what I do when I think about investments. It's all gone. I think to myself, whatever I invest into now is gone. So never invest more than you can afford to lose. Everything's a scam. Everything's a scam. Even if the things out of my mouth, you shouldn't even trust me. Just go and say, you know what? I don't really trust. Let me verify. I like Rob, but I'm going to verify, not trust. Next one. Nothing on exchanges. 0.0. So when this happened, we talked about on Celsius, June 12th, take it all off. We talked about this on Voyager, June 22nd, take it all off. This is not going to change. From here on out, nothing gets left on the exchanges. Did I leave some on the exchanges because I was using Voyager to dollar cost average? Well, I was buying things once a week like I talked about. Didn't lose that much. And I talked to everybody about this on June 22nd. Hopefully they listened, and hopefully they heard about Celsius and go, maybe some other ones are going to also suffer the same fate. No leverage, 25, 50, 100x. If you're a pro, go ahead. But for me, I'll never use leverage. Never. Doesn't seem like I'm not a trader. If you're a trader, have fun. Again, can't tell you what to do. And lastly, for me, is take profits. Nobody ever went broke taking profits, and I can tell you right now, almost 99.9% of people wish they would have taken more profits in the bull run. And there's a small percentage that don't, but that's it. So again, those rules stick around, and if you don't want to hear those rules, because I'll be talking about them every single day from now on, just unsubscribe, because that's what's up. So that's it for today. And again, I wish I had a little bit better news, but these are the facts. These are the things that are going on, and we'll see how it all plays out.